All right, welcome to the final set of week 3 for Cleety. We have Rats with Bats going up against Sleepy Time Gorrllia Museum. We see typical bands out here. You know, the Thor, the Odin, the Kukulkan, Persephone, Emoji, Hun Bats. Xing Chen is open, and that's exactly what they picked first here.
Yeah, the Jing Chen pick allows for a lot of flexibility. Can be obviously played either in the support role or even in the solo lane. So I like the fact that they were picking this up just because now you know whatever mid laners or ADCs that the opposing team are going to pick, they have to be pretty passive and have a lot of escapability. So obviously gearing more towards things like Jingwei, Hou Yi, even Hachiman. So it definitely puts the opposing team in a position where they already have to play more defensively instead of trying to take the initiative.
Indeed, but typically I don't think we've seen him solo once at all this season, nor in the last season as well.
Hey,
Normally in
I'm a
this
strong
support role.
believer in flex picks. I am a
Yeah, I mean,
very
I am
strong
too.
believer.
I could play Xing Chen solo is actually a sleeper pick into Jormungandr. But we see the
Exactly.
Scylla and Kukulkan come out. We saw Scylla last set, and unfortunately, she didn't land enough of her ults on the right targets. But hopefully, this Scylla turns around this game. Kukulkan, we see him a lot, but we also see him not necessarily succeed a lot as well. Unfortunately,
But
he's a lane bully.
I mean, with the transitions that we're seeing with Mystical Mail, it's kind of given a lot of soul laners who like to bully, who like to be in your face, a little bit more of a reason to kind of be played. At first, it was mostly just, I'm going to be passive in lane. I'm going to pick something like Amaterasu. I'm going to pick something like Nike, or I'm going to pick a Guardian. And we're kind of just going to look at each other, kind of hit each other a little bit, but probably not going to kill each other. And we're just going to wait for the big group setting. Now it's more towards that I actually do want to fight you. I do want to get totems. And if I can put any type of pressure on the enemy speed buff, on the enemy blue, then we can start shifting where a lot of the pressure is on the map and start looking at mid lane and solo lane instead of just the typical gank duo, gank duo, gank duo.
I mean, we've seen lots of sparks on the solo side of the map over the course of the entire season and last season as well. People just love to focus the solo side. You know, typically, I think most teams in this league have focused the solo side with just feeding the jungler and just getting him ridiculously ahead and just having him impact the 3v3 fights very heavily. But
and the biggest thing is you're not risking as much as when you're trying to go into the dual lane. Obviously, for any jungler's mentality, as we are going to see the Merlin locked in here, it's very difficult for them to try and possibly blink in knowing that there's just going to be a support active that's going to keep the ADC alive, or you're going to try and say, well, let's just go on to the support who's out of position, but at the same time, now we have to worry about the counter rotation, now we have to worry about the farm that we could possibly be losing. So going into that dual lane is just not as ideal as going into the solo knowing that they're most likely just going to have TP.
Indeed. I mean, we don't see King Arthur pick too often anymore with all those nerfs to Glacial and him. I mean, we saw some ridiculous stuff way back, you know, where you just 1v2 with no problem at all, or 1v4 even at certain points in the game. But
and we talk about 1v4, and just like you're going to say here, the Daji pick. I mean, tell me what you see about the Daji pick, because it's a pretty spicy one into an Uller and a Merlin.
Yeah, but I mean, lots of junglers in this league just favor the fact, you know, we see no CC immunity on this Merlin, we see no CC immunity in the ults or in their kit intrinsically with those gods. So typically they're just like, hey, we'll just pick Daji here and pull them in immediately. They don't have beads. I mean, it's just a very popular pick for junglers in this league.
And it definitely adds a lot more variety. Normally, when you see a Scylla, a lot of times you will think of the setup gods. You know, you're going to pick things like Kumbhakarna, you're going to pick things like Naja. But the Daji actually allows for a lot more flexibility in that you can actually pull beads just off of the multiple slows that she's able to actually put in her kit. And when you're dealing with immobile characters like the Merlin and even the Uller, considering the Daji can just catch up with him with the Trickster Spirit, it allows for a lot more diversity. And I'm going to slow one target, I'm going to ult another target, and at this point, Scylla just has to pretty much free cast onto anybody that's going to get pulled in here. And picking an Achilles into that can be very difficult just because of the fact that with Achilles' innate movement, it's not going to be that difficult for Scylla to be able to land a lot of her damage.
Indeed, I mean, and if she does find a target with no beads, she pulls him right in and still falls up with I'm a Monster right after. You saw Camisauce, actually, that's a surprise. You saw him get all the way down here to the last pick almost. I typically see him banned first or picked first. Also got surprised we see him make it all the way down there.
Definitely like the Camazot's pick here. It actually fights really well into the Daji. A lot of times levels 2, 3, and 4, it's difficult to fight into Daji in the jungle just because now you're having to deal with so much tick damage that you're taking over time that it's hard to try and continue to go for camps. You're going to have to use a lot of pots. But luckily, Camazot's has so much natural sustain within his kit that he can do really well fighting into her. Not to mention the fact that obviously, well, one person presses Y and Camazotz can just do the same thing. He's going to be able to ult out of that dodge G ult, so it allows for a lot more setup in the sense that Jing Chen is kind of going to be somewhat frontlining by himself here. Achilles has to be very careful fighting against an Ares and even fighting against a Scylla. But the Camazotz, even when he's just ulting, allows for him to be able to make more space that their team probably wouldn't be able to make so easily.
And yeah, I mean, with the Blink nerf too, that's a decent nerf into Ares, especially because that's arguably his favorite relic is to just blink in and get that ult and either pull beads or pull a god. And but with these team comps, which team do you think wins game 1?
That's a tough one, because I definitely have to say that whenever I see a Scylla, a lot of times you kind of want to go into her favor, because once she gets to late game, and even nowadays where, gosh darn near everything has penetration into it, I mean, mid game can even just be where she's really popping off and where she's shining. So I want to lean a little bit more towards the red team. Their composition is easier to pull off. We've got the Darkest of Night. We've got the Ares ultimate. We've got the Power Out. There's just so much CC that they can afford to expend without really losing anything. Versus looking at the blue team where a lot of it is really trying to just get the niche. It's trying to get just the right ability off. Merlin can do a lot of just throwing out abilities, but at the same time, when you don't have any big AoE ultimates to fight with 2 of your DPSs actually not having ults, it can be a little rough.
Yeah. I mean, gonna player specifically though, Justin Hu, I mean, we saw him last season when he was actually basically the main reason why team actually lost their undefeated streak, you know, on the former version of Grass with Bats HEO. You know, he can single-handedly win games for his team. Same thing with J-Feather we see for Davies Delinquents. So I think they gotta make sure Justin Hu can't go on a crazy spree of just getting kills on kills on kills on this Camazotz.
Very true. And Scylla isn't always necessarily the best god in the world to be able to consistently proc that anti-heal. A lot of times she's more of the, I want to just one combo you, I just want to get the damage off and that's it, versus other characters such as Merlin, or even, in all fairness, to Uller, who has continuous abilities that are just coming up that you can throw anything out. So it's going to be a lot of who are they going to try and focus, who are they going to try and kill. If Justin Hu can kind of play that, I'm going to come in after most of what my team's going to throw out has already been utilized and kind of just plays captain cleanup, then we're going to probably see it a little bit easy here. As we are actually going to see the Jing Chen trying to go in for the cheeky invade here.
He can get killed here.
They won't.
Yeah, he's dead. He shells. First blood easily goes to this red team. Or actually not, Jing Chen is still alive actually. No, he will fall.
Not gonna be for too much longer. This is again another reason why we don't see a lot of these cheeky level 1 invades on the speed buff. If you're gonna go with a hog, you're gonna be able to secure your buff, and fighting against a Daji and a Kukon, that's actually a lot of damage that they can easily put out. And probably not the best idea, because upstream opponent is not gonna have to fight this uphill battle.
Yeah, but at the same time, he did have the solo laner. Actually, it's the solo laner was the one there to sort of poke out this Jing Chen and get that kill, and he did lose a lot of minions to the tower, but even with that, he actually does still reach level 2 at the same time as his Achilles because of that kill.
My huge fear that I have here is that Caribou is already fighting against a backline that has no way of really being able to get away from him. You just gave first blood to the Daji, and he is going Blink first, so you know they're going to want to be playing more aggressively. How do you think that this Camazotz is going to be able to try and play into that, knowing that now he's already going to have to fight an uphill battle, because unfortunately he doesn't get that first blood advantage?
I think he just scare away the extra follow-up for the Daji. Because, I mean, a lot of players in this league do get kind of scared when the jungler just runs straight at you, and I mean, as long as they have peel, then they're fine, but sometimes you don't see the peel necessarily come out easily, but two Ares chains on the mark, lots of damage, but lots of return damage on this Ares, very low, and Justin Hu gets a kill in return, and just like that. Yikes, it's too aggressive.
Justin Who, this man's definitely trying to make his name known. I can definitely say that immediately is going to be able to put him back in. We've already got 2 kills on the board, 1 for each team, and actually on both supports. They have to be very careful in doing things like this because after the transition of the side from supports blessing, you have to ensure that you are with your team in order to actually get those kills.
Though. Oh, he stops the stun, or stops the dash, and actually kind of steals a kill there from his Uller, but a great play from Control E on that Uller to stun out the X-Ball mid-dash. So, but Jing Chen only level 2, caught out again, the chains are way too strong, and they're able to find the kill on the Jing Chen 1 and 2. Only level 2. Early on, that's not what you want to see out of your Jing Chen support.
Yeah, a lot of times I'm not always so upset with the supports getting the kills. A lot of times, you know, you want that Fed support, you want them to be able to actually aggress and do something with you, but at the same time, unfortunately, it just seems as though upstream Ponage, he's getting one, he's losing one, he's getting one, he's losing one. It's all about having those good intentions, but unfortunately, when the gameplay doesn't back up the mentality, then you're going to be in that situation here where you're level 2, and look at the opposing side. That is a level 5 Scylla. If upstream Ponage shows his face whatsoever in this mid lane, he is going to get immediately annihilated. And I do want to know what Dios is going to go into for this next item.
But he's still very aggressively pathing, and if he gets caught out here, that could spell even more doom for him. Looks like he'll just walk away here unscathed for once. But interesting, the Jing Chen went Shell. Typically you see him go Blink. Do you like the Shell over the Blink in this scenario?
Oh, 100%. Reason, again, you're dealing with so much initial burst, or you're dealing with so much tick damage that shell might actually be able to come in clutch. Once he gets that shell upgraded, that Danji trying to get that burns off, it's gonna be able to nullify that pretty well. So I'm not so opposed to it, and considering that he's only level 2 here, I'm actually even more in favor of it because he's got to play this one more passively, and that's very difficult. When you're playing characters like Athena, like Kumba, like Jing Chen, you want to run at people. You want to be able to be the initiator, but unfortunately, when you're in such a deficit, you have to be able to play conservatively.
Yeah, Upstream's one of the more aggressive supports in the league. You know, we've seen him mostly on the Bacchus, actually. You know, he sort of likes just running at people, but Ares is level 5, and he could easily just pull in the Jing Chen for a kill. But he actually doesn't expend the ult. Interestingly enough, that could have been just another free kill on the Jing Chen, but so it'll be a bit more respective with his ult.
And I'm not too opposed to necessarily holding the ult there just because of the fact that if you can at least pull the shell, then you already know that you're going to basically be pulling it out. You're already going to be able to have that advantage because they're not going to be able to come back in any type of way and turn that fight around. Again, like you said, that's a level 5 to now a level 4. That's a very scary deficit to be in, and you know that your opponent, as we're going to see a pause come out here, you know that your opponent has the blink. I know you play some support and some solo lane in your free time. So as a tank player, knowing that the person that you have to lane against or fight against has a more aggressive active than you, such as the blink into the shell, you know, what's the type of mentality that you want to kind of hold there?
I mean, you just gotta be more careful, you know. Especially because with their engages, they can easily have someone else coming in for them too at the same time, and being on the back foot's not necessarily the best thing to always be on. Especially when you're on aggressive support such as Jing Chen, you know. But up 500 gold now is Gorrllia Museum. Looks like Dios Lalo did DC there, unfortunately.
Oh, we are going to be able to see them coming back in here shortly. But again, I do want to heavily point this one out. The red team, they've got this composition that as these levels are coming online, they may have this small gold advantage, but again, just their composition alone can really allow for it to be so much bigger than it already is. All it takes is one good I'm a monster. All it takes is one good use or poor active usage out of Ghost is Dead or even Central Ult, and then immediately we're going to see Caribou be able to jump on top of that. So my fear here for the blue team is that they might get a little bit too comfortable with the fact that it's a small gold lead, but it can turn into something so much bigger because, again, we're not seeing the typical bread and butter of you press Y, I press Y, we kill their entire team. But on Dios's team, that is what we are going to see, as we are going to see him load back in here shortly.
Yeah, I mean, also, speaking of that team comp, you got the Scylla and Xbalanque, both late game gods, and something you never want to do is let these late game gods get their late game on a lot quicker. I think we've actually seen a lot of teams this year also focus these sort of much more late game comps rather than early aggression comps that we typically see.
we started to see that transition once we added basically easier ways for people to try and farm. You know, mid lane doesn't have to worry so much about going to both side camps and possibly getting ganked by the dual lane or possibly getting ganked by the enemy jungler. Dual lane actually has camps of their own, as we are going to see the rotation starting to come onto this Ullr. Ult is going to be out by immediately. This should be able to come on shortly, but they're going to let that go away. Got too close to the tower. Jing-Chan only level 4, so they really shouldn't have been worried too much about a possible counter aggression there.
Guess they just felt they were a bit out of range there, or maybe they felt like a rotation from the Camazotz or Myrtles also into. I mean, they have no wards on that side of the map except for the one right by their own purple buff. So I mean, I will give it to them. They have no ward coverage. They don't know it's coming at that point.
The only way that I'm really going to be able to give it to them here is if we see the red team go back into the dual lane, knowing that that Ullr doesn't have beads. But he is not playing more passively, as we're going to see the root coming out from so it doesn't look as though Crusher's up had to clear the wave out. Merlin again with no mana. Looks as though Hunter.
Yeah, wait. On the AC side, Dodgy went straight to Ullr in that side of the map. Darkest Nights comes out as well. I'd like to see ult come out, and again, just doesn't use the ult. That's very interesting from this Dodgy. I mean, that's just a free kill there, I think.
Yeah, to expend Darkest of Night, but not want to go off into the payload. Very, very curious to know what that mentality is. He's still holding on to the blame too. As you see, dive under tower. Ult's gonna come off from this Achilles. Doesn't look as though this Gukal's gonna be able to take too much of this tower. It's gonna get stuck in between tier 1, tier 2. Camazotz coming over a great rotation here versus Diaz. Good CC, and Justin's gonna be able to click that one up.
I mean, I think that kill could come out a bit quicker if he just was a bit more patient on the ult, but Ullr, 0 mana, no beads. Easy kill there. And we finally see Dodgy ult be expended.
But why? But why? Why the Dodgy ult now? There was 4 people on the left side. I see that as overkill. Look at this fight that they're immediately in now. Blink's gonna come out of this Camazotz. Monster's gonna have to be expended just to try and make some distance, but unfortunately it doesn't look as though the team wants to try.
No mana for Camazotz though.
Might be able to get the dash off. Is gonna be able to make a good juke.
Merlin
is gonna be too good. So they're still gonna try and take the chase. Camazotz is gonna get pinched here. Good damage coming out onto this Ares. Is one shot upstream. Opponent's gonna be able to pick that one up very quickly as they are gonna keep chasing down this Kukulkan. Doesn't look as though anybody wants to try and commit too hard to that one.
Yeah, I mean overall this team, Rapid Bats is a very aggressive team normally, so yeah, we see sort of some other teams like Lagotana Mera is more team fight focused team, but for teams like Rapid Bats, they're all about just running straight at you, maybe still. But oh no, JD gets the Gold Fury steal there.
That is a feels bad moment. That actually has to hurt. You immediately win a team fight. You're going for
and he's still alive. He gets to kill an upstream opponent. He might get double kill here onto Camazotz. Camazotz still has 0 mana. Just running away at the moment. Nothing else to do for him. He's just a sad little Camazotz and picked up the kill there too. And Ullr. Oh, but Ghost does my return kill, for, make it a 1 for 2. But just a great play from Gingy on this Kukulkan. I mean, his solo lane counterpart, this Achilles, just pushing lane the entire time.
I have to say, what was the communication on the blue side when it came to doing that Gold Fury? There was nobody zoning that one out. We're really going to see Red Team going for a steal. I mean, you're in a position where you have an advantage. Speaking of...
I'm a monster! Get the reset!
I'm a monster for 1! Not going to get the 2.
It was just unfortunate there if you're a Rapid Bats fan that didn't go for away. I mean, another thing we've seen though is a lot of teams don't go for this secure comm. Nobody just go for shred. 2 chains off the mark, all of them off the mark.
Unfortunate.
But yeah, I mean, most teams just go for the shred. Camazotz is just going to chase down this area so he gets the kill on the Pingu. And he still wants more. Looks like he actually will dash away. Power Ranger's still not up yet, so they can't get that extra little small objective there for the time being, but kills are even at 7-7, a 1k gold lead for Gorrrlia Museum at the moment. It looks like we do have another pause vote come out. Maybe Dios might have DC'd again.
Honestly, I have to say, I am so gravely disappointed in Caribou's play here. There are so many moments where, unfortunately, I do have to say these fights are lost or they're too close just because of the innate decision-making or general mechanics that we're seeing. That initial fight near the Gold Fury immediately lost to them just because of the fact that he immediately decided to ult the Uller, who was already getting ganked by 4 people, has no beats because you already pulled it, and then once he comes down from the Paolo, the opposing team's coming, they're gonna wrap back around, and you don't have ult in order to win that fight against a team that you know your ult is gonna be the big game changer here. Then now we're on the the solo lane side. Look as though they're trying to possibly do Pyromancer, but then again, Caribou just has to hit one chain. Still already has the crush rating at the bottom. Then they're gonna get the root combination out of there, but nothing. We don't see the chains. When you're playing a character like that where all you have to do is hit one thing and you immediately win the game, but you can't perform, unfortunately, it just seems as though you're going to have to start putting that weight on somebody else. We're going to have to start seeing these Ares ults be more impactful. We're going to have to start seeing Scylla hit way more by herself without necessarily having to rely on the setup from Caribou until Caribou can get into a groove. But what I do give him, though, is he's at least going into the Jotun's Wrath, which will allow for him to kind of make up for any of those times where he's missing abilities because he's got the cooldown reduction for it.
Like, we look at the graphs for XP, because 2 levels up in both solo and the jungle, in fact, maybe half a level, yeah. Even though the gold difference is in the Gorrlia's favor, the XP difference isn't by a lot, 1700. 2 levels up in solo, 2 levels up in the jungle, which, again, is something you don't want to see, especially against Justin Hu, and half a level up for this Uller against the Xbalanque, who, I mean, the Xbalanque's honestly had probably quite a relaxing lane. I mean, the Uller's been the one getting ganked, but at the same time, because of those ganks, because of this dodgy consistently coming over here, he takes away farm, and it's actually probably the reason why he's down half a level to a level.
Yeah, Flash Salvado honestly has pretty much the easiest time in the world. The man actually just has to hit the wave. I've always found this to be kind of an interesting interaction with Darkest of Night. You literally can get an assist and get gold off of somebody basically being affected by your ult in some type of way. And that's really interesting because all he has to do, clear the wave, stack his Transcendence, get his little lifesteal online, and then hit the tower. That's it. Like, Critical actually has to play out of his mind because when you're picking something like Uller, again, extremely high expectations. We need you to be that lane bully. That's why you're picking it. As we're going to immediately see Kukulin, the lane bully, actually getting a little aggressive on, but again, not going to see too much pulled out of him. Took a little damage, but he's going to walk away from that.
Now looking for an invade actually on this blue buff. I mean, compared to most solo lanes, a blue buff invade while his XP taken away, it's not necessarily that bad if you're a Kukulin because you don't have mana, you have that rage passive. But again, farm is still farm, and losing that's very important.
Yeah, it definitely seems as though the intentions, again, are there, but the actions just... it's a Kukulin. So it's a level 9 Kukulin, doesn't care.
Chains and flames, baby! Pinky gets the kill on the control lead, just way too aggressive from this Uller. Flash Veil was very low, it looks like he did lose a 1v1 engagement, but because of that, the Uller was way too aggressive and got himself killed. No beat. Actually, he did expend his own beats there, very interestingly enough, very late. And, I mean, if they heard that, they can just pull him on cooldown now.
Looking back to when a lot of ADCs were building this awkward, like, hybrid build, and when mid laners were putting hybrid builds, I'm not gonna lie, I know a lot of you guys are gonna hate me for this. What about a third item Magi's Blessing? Because this Uller doesn't get to play the game. You already know at this point. This guy does not get to play the video game. Every time he steps up to try and make himself relevant, there is going to be somebody around the corner that's going to pull his actives. I do not blame this Uller for standing there after he got chained the second time because you're dead. You just know you're dead. You don't get to play. Jing Chen ult, unfortunately, off the mark. Not seeing too much with the Jing Chen ult yet, so not too surprised we aren't seeing it now, but I just see a lot of this dual lane just not hitting the mark. You picked a hyper-aggressive dual lane, but Jing Chen is holding ult, and then when we're hitting the ult, there's no CC off of it, so naturally people just walked away from it, and Uller just can't do anything.
Dude, Dashi is maybe looking for a sneak killer, but she's all alone in the enemy jungle. You still gotta play a bit carefully, but this Ullr's also gotta play a bit carefully, because again, Daji has ult up. Great way of canceling out the Trickster Spirit. But yeah, I think I do like the idea of an earlier on Magi's Cloak. You know, typically, or just in general, I mean, the only thing that really should be hitting you that will proc it. Oh, but a great Ares pull pulls in 2, and they will fall easily. Double kill for Caribou, but yeah. I mean, generally, you're not gonna get hit by a solo route, and the only other CC that's really gonna pop that you're gonna likely see is Kukul, but outside of that, it's still just a item I think you need at this point. You need to go it very soon, because they're just focusing you hard. You're 0-4 on this Ullr, who it's sort of like a Kukul, you know, if you can't lane bully and you can't get that lead in your lane, then, like, what do you do? What's your goal?
Merlin, it's all up to you, at least in the first stages of this game. Because right now, as I'm looking and seeing how this is transitioning, it just isn't getting better. We've got a 2 and 8 dual lane, who are both levels 8 and 10 to a 9 and 10, and even though the level disparity isn't that bad, Xbalanque just doesn't get bad. There's no point in a game where Xbalanque gets worse. If anything, he just progressively gets better because his ult is being able to be more coordinated. There's more of a reason towards it. There's more of a way to actually play around it. It's the same thing that we're going to see out of Ares ult.
Yeah.
Press Y, you're pulling all the DPS. Apparently, you're also pulling upstream ponage because this man got stuck in Ares ult as well. I mean, I'm just not seeing...
Ooh, they're looking for a kill on their tower, though. Actually, Control Elite does get a kill on Flash of Fail. But look at the stack differential, though. I mean, before that kill, it was 2 stacks of transfer this Ullr compared to 42 for this Xbalanque. But with that kill, though, it looks like they are positioning around this Wolf Reef. Everyone from Massive Bats is in position. Only 4 because of Flash of Fail falling for Gorilla Museum. This Achilles is just gonna run straight at the Scylla. Great use of the chain to cancel out this dash, but Leaf actually is off the mark and was just waiting. Again, cool, or because it'll fit you early, just like we find the kill on the Caribou. Control Elite does also find kill on the Pingu as well, but just a bit uncoordinated there from Gorilla Museum.
I can't tell if Caribou is playing more towards scared or more towards waiting for this golden opportunity. For him to not have ulted much sooner is a curiosity to me.
Yeah.
And I understand the obvious nerfs that we saw coming out of Blink, but they didn't delete Blink, they nerfed Blink. So every time we've seen them aggress into the dual lane, as we see here again, aggression going on to the Xbalanque here, but Darkseid Knight's gonna be a good enough ultimate.
But watch out for the Jing Chen.
Coming around the backside, wrapping around, jump 1, jump 2, here comes the ultimate, and unfortunately doesn't look as though he's gonna be able to get out of that one. Pressed in between the back of his tower. Just starting to see the transition, starting to see more group play. But the fear still comes from what are we gonna do with this lead now? Where is it gonna take them?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, from even when they were behind 1,000 gold, they still had the level leads in almost every role except for support because of a few unfortunate falls early for him. But I mean, they just got to play around their level lead at this point. Level 15 for the Achilles, level 13 for the Camazots, both 2 levels up against their counterparts. I mean, Justin Hu, like I said, you got the best way to counter junglers like Justin Hu is to have Peel, but you don't have Peel on your team. You have a Ares and a Kukul, and I think the team's kind of got to work around that a little bit more, at least get this Camazots down and stop him from spiraling out of control with the snowball.
Very true, and it seems as though not enough people are putting pressure onto Justin Hu here. Obviously, he's being a really big factor to what's keeping the team very relevant here, as we're going to see our first initial dance around the fire.
He's slapping this Kukul. Kukul's at like 20% health, all because Camazots is slapping him away, and look at the health differential. I mean, Kukul or Camazots only lost like maybe 100 health there at most. That's just the power of Camazots sustain. You have just so much sustain between the passive, the 2, and the 3. Daji's in a very awkward position. He's gonna ult up, but I think she's still dead here, even with... Actually, she's dead in her own ult. The tick damage from the Camazots is too much. For what started as a good start for this Daji is just sort of on a ride. I'm a monster. He doesn't find... Actually, no, he does find Merlin, and Merlin will fall because of his aggression. Ares thrown away, and Ares is still just barely alive on this backline of 2-for-1 trade out so far. Achilles will get the kill, make it a 3-for-1. And Kukulkan is also looking likely to fall here as well. But actually, the Camazotz...
trying to cheat for his life, going to his tier 1 tower, lots of CC coming out, good jump, but just not sure if it's going to be enough.
And the dot damage.
Justin who? This man is again definitely making a name for himself on this battleground of the gods. He's going to be able to take the tier 1 tower in the mid lane. Ule trying to find himself some relevancy here, possibly going for the solo, but looks like Chibalake is not wanting to get on this guy's
The Hail of Arrows is on the mark. Beautiful play from Control Elite, and I mean, he was getting so many times as Uller, but he's 3 levels up against his lane counterpart. I mean, it's just a tail of the XP.
When you know the CC is gray screen because they're back in the base and you're finally able to do Uller things, this is the type of play that we want to be able to see. This man is definitely bringing it back. Imagine getting ganked that many times and still having a 3-level lead. Very demoralizing for Fly So Fatal. Again, he's starting to get to that point where might need to get some more rotations into the dual lane, but as we're starting to obviously transition very quickly out of this laning phase, we're going to have to start to see how well they're going to be able to play together. And one of the biggest reasons too why we're seeing Caribou die so quickly to this Camazotz is every time it just seems as though he's getting imploded. I like the Crusher pick here. Reason being is because he's not trying to continuously expend abilities. He's not trying to chunk you down or chip you down. He's trying to do one and done. I go in, I get lots of damage off that you can only Aegis so much out of, and he went blink and beads, and then you're dead. So much tick damage coming from the Camazotz that a lot of times you just really don't anticipate. But when you're putting Crusher on top of that, especially going into the Transcendence, that's a lot of damage.
And also with the Camazotz, we see the Erendite come out, 75 power, 10% cooldown. You know, when you're done ulting, it gives you the extra damage onto whatever gods you have in your radius next. I mean, he has a lot of power. He has Transcendence. He has this Erendite, as I just mentioned. I mean, he's just wanting to run at these people non-stop.
Very, very true. And my only concern that I'm starting to see here is that the only anti-heal that we're seeing coming out of the red team is just on this Scylla. And we had already stated at the beginning of the game, obviously, Dios is not going to be the easiest person to consistently proc that anti-heal. So right now, you're fighting into a Jing Chen, you're fighting into an Achilles, you're fighting into a Camazotz. That is so much sustain that's coming out of their team. That's just not being able to plot.
And the kill is done even before he got into his ult. One thing that most people don't look at the Camazotz actually is that in his ult, he gets 10% extra damage for each god hit with the swoop. And so it looks like we're going to the fight still. Just Xbalanque is so low. He's just getting run down by this Rapid Bats team, and the kill will come out for Eruption Ponage. Ares ult is good. I'm a Monster doesn't find anything because of good Aegis. And Achilles is just chasing down the Scylla. I just was off the mark, but the Aegis was perfect. He pulled him at 100 HP. It's still likely going to fall here. It's the Jing Chen actually. Roar is on the mark, and that will likely spell his doom. What's a dot? Actually, it wasn't enough. But speaking of the Kukulkan, though, it's still hiding under the Phoenix. Christ, I mean, the only other anti-heal they have, though, is Kukulkan's 1, but that's not necessarily the best way to get it on most of these characters. Dajiel was expended. It looks like the chains are completely off the mark on this Achilles. I think this Achilles can still solo this Daji. Gets the dash. Still barely losing health, but
that's what happens when you don't have enough anti-heal to stop a lot of the sustain that's coming out of this Achilles. Is actually going to be able to get away. I definitely think Caribou should have been able to try and find that. He's got the Yolings, he's got the Hydras. That's a lot of damage that he could have been able to expend there, but very unfortunate. I mean,
5 levels down though in comparison to that solo laner that he was trying to prox up against.
What the red team has is massive amounts of coordination when it comes to weaving together their abilities. But what they seem to lack is application, and it seems so strange to me that all you have to do is just to throw out one ability. Every person on their team has some reliable source of CC, but it just seems as though every time these fights are happening, it's a hodgepodge of 2 people on the left, 2 people on the right, 1 person's in the back, and Daji's getting soloed again by the Camazotz and constantly ulting late. I mean, at this point, why even go into the Transcendence that Caribou's going into when you're already going to have to start playing tower defense? You're going to put yourself so much farther behind, now needing to get all these stacks online, when this Camazotz is 10-1, and there's so much sustain on the blue team, and the only anti-heal you have, I will actually mark the Ares, did just get some anti-heal too, and it's only on Scylla and Ares.
no one around for this fire giant. It's just getting melted. Yeah, like I said, a 10-1-7 on this Camazotz Justin Who. I mean, I believe he also holds the last season's record for most kills in that game where he had, I believe, 24 in one game from the jungle. Typically, he goes on this Pele. He likes these junglers that have a lot of sustain in them. You know, the Pele, like I said, the Camazotz as well. Just lots of damage, lots of sustain. Wouldn't be surprised if Thanatos is in this couple.
Of course, and it's a playstyle that he's utilizing extremely well. He goes in, he goes out, he goes in, kind of like an accordion effect, able to actually keep himself topped off. Ares all isn't coming out of the feeds, dumps tonight as well. Titans wide, but they can see again. It looks as though Kukala with a huge knockup, but where is the follow-up? They're too busy getting done in the background. I'm a monster having to be used defensively. Achilles is going to be able to take out Fly So Fatal. I'm a monster is going to drop down. Unfortunately, I want to tank your people on their team. Not enough anti-heal to be able to stop the amount of sustain that's coming out there. Merlin's going to be able to back up. Justin Who's going to come down again, showing to the team why he is 11-1 right now. Team's going to get ran down. Phoenix still standing. The little Firebird's trying to make himself known as well. Looks as though, unfortunately, the Phoenix has kind of gotten a lot more damage off from the opposing team.
And this could be game.
Unfortunately, abilities are going to be off the mark. Not a root nor a crush to this man's name. He's going to be able to get the pentakill that we have been looking for from this Scylla.
Yeah, really get it. Crush doesn't find much, but yeah, too much damage. Titan's already basically dead at this point. But another thing I wanted to point out though, in that fight, we saw the Daji and Ares both go up at the same time, and that's not something you want to do if you're doing that combo. You gotta wait for the other one to finish so that they get the beads out. And like, that was just unfortunate. It was a bit of a misplay again from this Daji. But game one falls very quickly in 23 minutes. The team rats with bats.
The biggest thing is, there wasn't even a gold lead that was so far that you can say one team genuinely had it over the other. You're looking at both these teams, and neither of them even got close to having late game build. Not one person on either team had a full build. There was so many opportunities for them to try and slow the game down and be able to bring it back into your court. But when you have Kukulkan 2-4, Shibalanke 1-7, Ares 2-7, and just didn't really get the big impact off of the Scylla ults, it just felt as though they were relying so much on Caribou on this Daji. He's got so many advantages here, but he just didn't take advantage of any of them. Lots of misplays going into the dual lane, not a lot of kills that we saw coming out of there, never really went into the solo lane to try and get any kills there, and there were just so many dropped kills where if he had just gotten any sense of anti-heal or just ulted a good 3, 4, 5, and 9 seconds earlier, he would have been able to do a lot more off of it. But game one, hopefully we'll see how game two goes.
I mean, like I said, they had the Scylla and the Jablanca both late game, and they just snuffed out this late game flame that Team Gorrllia Museum was trying to go for. Look at Colin though, he got a great knockup in that final fight, and that could have been turnaround, but interestingly enough, for his relics, he went sprint. What do you think of sprint as a relic there in that scenario, even if the game goes on a bit longer?
That already tells you the mentality that the players were holding. That in itself already says enough. When you're solo laner, when you're a sorry, I found it really funny. When you're Kukulkan, the aggressor, the basically male god of Bologna, the person who's supposed to be in your face, like a King Arthur, is picking up a relic that's more defensive or is using the relic more defensively, you already know that you've pretty much won the game at that point because you're making the opposing team already have to play defensively. That's what you're already going through. When the I'm a monsters are already being utilized in a more I have to get myself away, I have to peel for myself, then you already know we're already in a good state here. We're already good. I mean, it was a full aggressive team. You've got a Daji, you've got an Ares, you've got a Scylla. There was no point where their team could ever say, let's just back up here, let's reset. No, you've got a team that's all in. That could call in, if you're gonna be all in, you might as well get the blink and you might as well go all in. Do the composition that you've got.
I mean, there's certain relics like on solo lanes where if you're just not going them, you're not playing the god right. And I mean, you need blinks, you need sometimes the thorns, you need even the Aegis, as you see on like the Jormungandr. But going into the next game though, I would like to see this Camazotz be banned out. We saw him first picked or banned every single game this entire season, and I don't know how he made it all the way to the 9th pick, going through 2 sets of bans.
That is very true. Camazotz being the last pick for their team and having done that much, I really hope that we don't see that again. I
Yeah.
really hope that that's going to be banned out. But what I also want to see is a little bit more discipline coming from our winning team here. Having picked 2 DPS, your main source of damage, with no sense of CC immunity, especially on console when you know that people tend to kind of gravitate more towards the Ares and more towards the dodges just because it's a little bit easier for us to try and land the abilities because not as many people can dodge as well. I mean, that's one of those things where you got to make sure that you're not fighting an uphill battle. Imagine if that. I'm sorry?
I said indeed. I was just agreeing with you.
I mean, imagine if we saw a more safer but aggressive composition coming out of the dual lane. I can only imagine how much that Uller would have done. Having a 3-level lead, but getting ganked gosh darn near 4, 5, 6 times is impressive. But now let's see you do that on a character where you don't have to worry so much. Let's see you do that on a hyper carry type of character. Let's see you do that on a character that actually has an ultimate that's going to be able to provide so much more. That's what I want to see. No more of this Barracuda type of passivity that we started to see out of him, but let's see more of something where you actually want to try and run their team down. Don't give them so much space, because this Uller, I think he was slept on a lot because he was just getting pushed down so much.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I think a huge part of that comes down to the fact that Daji just didn't want to ult in the early game. Had 2 cases where she just could have easily gotten a pull and kill in, but they just didn't do it. I mean, just sometimes you just gotta let the ult fly, you know?
Call me wrong here, but with the ban coming in, where we're hopefully going to see the Camazotz, one of the biggest things that I want to see is possibly getting a Hoonbots pick in there. If they can actually utilize that instead of the Daji, where you have a strong source of CC, and it's a lot easier to get the ult off versus the Daji ult. You know, the Daji ult was more of that fear factor, more of that CC type of thing that you can chain, but unfortunately, wasn't hitting the mark because the 1v1s were difficult. So don't pick a character that we're expecting so many 1v1s, but instead pick a character where now all you have to do is just press Y and the CC is just naturally applied.
I mean, but at the same time, though, I don't know if Humbats will make it through. I think he's only made it through bans like twice this season. He's just such a strong guy with that Fear No Evil ultimate, and also he has a ton of mobility too. He can teleport to his monkey toss. He can also just leap on people. Lots of damage too. I mean, he has a built-in Hydra's passive in his own kit. I mean, if you monkey toss on someone and teleport instantly and it's auto attack them, that's a huge amount of the health that they just lose off that alone. And not to mention, the Fear No Evil does actually a lot of damage too. It's actually kind of slept on at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of those types of things where a lot of times people are like, I'll beat it, I can stay inside of it, I can try and, turn and burn. But it is like you're saying, a lot of the itemization that we've seen within the jungle, for the most part, tends to stay about the same, just because jungles tend to be able to dominate games a little bit too strong, a little bit too hard if they get too many buffs. But there's so much penetration and burst damage that we can still see out of the jungle role that it is absolutely gnarly. Monkey toss goes out, teleport, you're already dead. But another character that I kind of want to see us on Justin too is, and this is maybe a little weird, I want to see this for Cat. I want to see what he can do on a character like that as well, where it's more towards he seems to do really well with 1v1ing. I want to see him on a character that naturally excels in that and see how far and how much further he can really push those limits. I want to see what he can really do on that, only because of the fact that, again, they were playing more of these characters where they're constantly fighting in this uphill battle where you have to kind of ramp it up a little bit and then you can get the ball rolling.
Yeah,
I
but
want to see what they can do on characters that are already there.
At the same time, though, Justin Who sort of has his own 667, like Weekend does. I believe he did 8K on Humbats in like 40 minutes in one game. So that's another thing. I'm pretty sure they'll just put him on a god that he'll say, hey, I just want to pick this guy and carry on it. I mean, but he could play this Cat too. We've seen her picked a few times. And like you said, you want to see the Humbats come out, but they recognize that first ban.
So sad. Oh, so
Mo.
sad. I feel like aggro when there's never a Zeus being played. It feels so sad. Well,
you feel sad. I'm a chalk main. I don't get my god he picked at all.
See, as a Nox player,
for a while.
As a Nox player, I'd like to see Nox actually being played in mid lane. But hey, we don't always get what we want. Don't always get what we want.
I mean, hey, we both got one person who plays it like Azalea for Chalk, and Dardes does like playing the Nox pick.
This is also true. But another mid laner that unfortunately we will not see is going to be the Kukulkan, a god that a lot of people have said that isn't necessarily this high skill cap kind of god, but is actually more towards the opposite, where a lot of people see it to be so simplistic and so easy to get damage off and really be able to change the geography of the map by being able to completely shut down really any entrances or even objectives that, fortunately, they just don't want to see him. Just don't like the big snack.
Yeah, but actually, I don't think he's won that many games this season, if at all, for Clady. Maybe just 1 or 2 over the course of 3 weeks and many sets and games. At the same time,
Persephone. He is definitely Persephone. High expectations doesn't always meet the mark.
But speaking of Persephone, not panned out yet. I would like to see it panned out. I mean, we've seen some teams somehow manage to get Persephone and Xingqian in the first wave of picks. Ooh.
I just want to see some fun in the mid lane.
Yep,
no more
Persephone.
God. There it is. I want to see some fun in the mid lane. No more Scyllas, no more Merlins. We're tired of that. Blah. Like, let's actually see some characters that you got to combo things together, and it's actually more entertaining. Let's see some. I am, setting up this big brain play for 5 minutes down the road. I've got this massive garden up, and now, bam, huge, massive ultimate. That's what I want to see.
I mean, one combo I've seen been wrong with Persephone is Ganesh, because she throws her ult, they get rooted in one spot for a short amount of time or forever, depending on how you play the ultimate or play around it. And when they get stuck by that root, they have the Xingqian, or not the Xingqian, the Ganesh will just come up on top of it, and Ganesh does a lot of damage for support too. But we see the Jormungandr come out.
Yes, I live for seeing big flashy ultimates like that. Persephone ult, I love to see the Jormungandr ult. It's actually really funny. Especially when Jormungandrs build the Void Stone, all of a sudden, Big Snake's just coming around the corner, and then you just get hit by him. And when you see, and I kid you not, when you see ADCs or mid laners get hit by Jormungandr ult, it is absolute comedy. Because the amount of damage that you take, it's like, all right, that's half my health bar. All right, that's 3/4. Alrighty. Can anybody stop it? Oh no, we can't stop him. Oh, I mean, CC immune. Oh, we just can't. We just have to. All right.
As a solo laner, Jormungandr is one of my top picks, and let me tell you, it's just insane when you go into that ult with like maybe even Soul Reaver or E-Staff typically, and you hit a mid laner for one of your many hits of your ult for 400 plus. It's just insane amounts of damage. I mean, that's the power of these items that the magical souls can build, Even with all the power they have, they also get a lot of health and protections from it, whereas compared to like a physical stone, like, Kukulkan and Odin or something, they don't have much health built in and don't have much protections either.
And it's interesting to look at these matchups between the Xingqian and the Jormungandr versus the Terra and the Kukulkan. Now, we clearly see here our beefy, tanky frontlines. I honestly cannot say that I've enjoyed seeing Kukulkan fight against a double tank frontline or a double guardian frontline, only because their natural ability to keep themselves alive is so much stronger than Kukulkan's, because he wants to just go in and be a nuisance. Tanks don't really care about Kukulkan. There's nothing about Kukulkan that's like, oh no, like, this guy is going to, stop us from doing anything that we like to naturally do. I really feel like doubling down and trying to, basically, if you can't beat him, join him, would have worked a little bit better here. I know it's a sleeper pick, and I know that it's very niche, but I think I would have liked to see the Terra and the RTO, only because of the massive amounts of CC that those two characters can provide, heavily shut down what a Jormungandr and Xingqian want to do, especially considering that now there's a Bastet on the red team here. I just don't feel as though this Kukulkan's going to be able to really bring a lot. And the last game we saw out of this team, I didn't really see a lot from the Kukulkan pick.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen RTO at all, but one of the problems is when you put into a Xingqian, they'll just ult you on cooldown, and you'll end up being like something like 1-6 at the end of the game, because you just got ulted on cooldown, really couldn't do much the entire game. We see a Chiron come out. Interesting, I mean, he has that CC cleansing as one. Actually, kind of would like to see it come out if they want to go for something
Wait a
spicy.
second. I like these picks so far. This is exciting. These are the games that casters like to cast. I see Abasta, Chiron, Terra, Chernobog. Please lock in that. Thank you. Annika Black in Jungle. This is what we like to see. Alrighty. If you get ran the last game, then sometimes it is okay to just completely throw the opposing team off, pick your comfort picks, pick what you gotta do, and bring it back. Because they haven't played against characters like this in so long that it might be something where, hey, you know, you're sleeping on the damage that, you know, Discordia can do. And I love the fact that they round out their composition with the Discordia, because that passive should most likely be going on to this Bastet just because of the fact that Bastet likes to be aggressive. She likes her early game damage. And now that you're adding a Discordia passive on top of it, this, if Caribou cannot provide against a Cabrakian in a matchup that is mostly in his favor, I really, really think their team's going to just get pummeled.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Guantanamo versus OP in their one game. They had Discordia Jingwei, and they gave the Jingwei the Discordia passive, and she had 51k damage at the end of the game, which was just insane. She was just absolutely demolishing the other team with that Discordia passive. It's a scary passive. Yeah. It's very useful.
You asked me this last game. I gotta ask you at this game before we fully load in here. Who are you giving it to?
Wrestle bets. Easy. I just feel like they'll just run them down once more. I mean, I'm honestly surprised I didn't see Justin go back on his old comfort on Pele, but I mean, Cabrakan, I've seen him play before, and I was in the mid lane when I saw him play, and it was scary as all hell. Just getting chased by Cabrakan.
Of course, every person who plays mid or ADC, every squishy knows when there's a Cabrakan in the game, it's like when you see a Ymir. You kind of just look at them, and then you kind of just get sad. Like, you're just like, alright, I 100% see how this game's gonna go. Like, you don't even know, like, is it worth beating this? Or should I just age this preemptively? Because I just know I'm going to die. Like, It's one of those, do I ult? Do we ult? At least, like, I don't know how this Discordia is going to do it. That's all I got to say.
Or you just save your relic.
The last game was something. I don't know how DS is going to do it this game. He literally does nothing to Cabrakan. Or to Cabrakan.
Or you just save your relic and your relics and just die, because you're basically just dead either way at that point.
But then, but then you're passive, though. Like, you have to try and put the game into your field at some point.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm hoping we don't see the cheese level 1 invades anymore. I'm hoping they learned their lesson. Didn't provide as much as I'm sure they were hoping for.
But to be fair, though, in the SEC yesterday in the EU, we saw a Terra steal away a speed buff from a Pakasura, which, I mean, anything can happen. You know, Terra is known for having a pretty terrible level 1, but hey, even on the invasion, you can steal away a Pakasura's speed buff.
Matchup probably going a little bit easier just because of the fact that, like, actually being able to stun him out of the animation if you're just timing it properly so that he doesn't get to eat off. But again, we are gonna fortunately see a pretty normal start for a pretty unorthodox composition of gods and goddesses on this battleground here, as we are gonna really see them starting to go out. I mean, I love this mid lane matchup. I'm really torn. Who are you looking at having that slight advantage towards?
I mean, I have to give it to Ratchet Bassing for Ghost. I mean, he has all this extra step for his damage. You know, one thing that we see with the Emirs too with Persephone is they put that wall up, and Persephone goes as far as it wants to until it hits a wall. And if you have that extra wall up that just blocks it from going way too far and just keeps in the right spot, it just is perfect for lots of damage, especially with the Terra ult too. I mean, you're placing multiple plants on your own ultimate, and with that Terra ult just giving that extra amount of burst damage on top of that, it's very scary.
Already coming out onto the red team, 4-man grouping onto that red buff. Cabrakan is going to be on the backside. Persephone is going to be able to try and follow up here, but unfortunately, it looks as though they are not going to be able to get there just in time. And this tends to be the issue that comes from Cabrakan jungle, that if you are a team that doesn't fear the initial damage from a Cabrakan jungle, he doesn't really do anything. But speaking of not doing anything, oh my goodness,
you want me to
actually won.
I mean, this is one thing we actually do see, which is kind of interesting, because Kukulkan, when enemies hit him, he gets that rage passive up. Jormungandr does a lot of tick damage, and that just basically insta-stacks his passive in lane, so this Kukulkan, who already is basically always in his rage form in lane, has it up even more often. And great actually use of that 3 from the Trinobot to immune the damage from the Chiron.
But this is the only thing that I feel is going to be very difficult for the Kukulkan, is that he's going to go into physical defense here first, fight against a magical solo laner. And if Gingy plays this right, all he has to do is just play the poke game, and he should be able to have a pretty decent advantage there. And I've never really seen Jormungandr have difficulty with just throwing out the spit, backing up, throwing out the spit, backing up. It just seems like that's a pretty typical combo, as you are going to see a beautiful combo coming out of the Terra, a decent amount of damage coming out. But again, they are fighting into a composition that has a lot of passive sustain coming from a Jing Chen and a Chiron.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to soloing, though, I mean, the sustain from Glacial is always important, but at the same time, when getting this boxing matchup in your favor is also very important. You know, so typically we see, if they don't go Glacial, they go into magical protection with a runic shield just because it reduces that power from the Jormungandr even further. I mean, there's lanes where, you know, you see a Kukulkan go runic and then a Jormungandr go this Jade Helm, and they just don't do any damage to each other because they reduce each other's damage to practically 0.
Looks as though Persephone is already trying to set up her garden within the mid lane. And one of the hardest things I think about both these mid laners is that their ability to try and solo one another, it's pretty limited. Again, it's all just based off of trying to poke one another out. It's not like where Scylla's just gonna root combo, ult you, dead, you're gone. It's not like Isis where, again, it's just I'm gonna combo you, you're gone. A lot of it is I have to perfectly get everything off, and if I don't, well, one of my abilities, I just have to fully clear the wave loop. Because, again, they're very niche characters here, and I'm really hoping that Caribou doesn't sit too long on this Bastet, because, again, Cabrakan is still a Guardian. He's still going to have those natural protections. And if Justin starts to go into a hybrid build, it's going to be very difficult for Caribou to try and actually aggress on him, because we don't see any penetration coming out of Caribou. Possibly what's going to be a Transcendence here. He's really delaying a lot of the aggression here.
Grail from Persephone reads 2 in place, and that return damage from Cabrakan is just way too much. Ghost actually does get the kill in the very end there. Square will leap away. Persephone is at 0 man. She's actually got to be very careful there. She might get a return kill right onto her. Damn, it's just not enough yet, even with... Ooh, but Jing Chen's coming in. Can he get the kill? He left into lane, though, that's the thing. He had no mobility at that point. And again, he went shell and set blink. He went shell and set blink.
Blinking. I don't know why.
But 2v1 because of that Jing Chen rotation for Trolli gets him the kill. And again, this Jormungandr is just stuck under this tower. He has no blue buff too. I mean, Guardians typically struggle with mana in the early game, and taking away that blue buff from the Jormungandr is just a death sentence. It's sort of like taking away blue buff from a King Arthur or an Achilles. It's just very brutal to fight into.
And speaking of really brutal fighting, I look more at the combination that we're seeing coming out of mid jungle, or even the 3v3, the mid jungle and support, and it's very difficult to really see what exactly is our goal here. So Jing Chen's gonna pretty much just try and ult anybody he can, right? But then is that going to lead into just a strife coming out of the Discordia? Is that leading into the apple that's gonna hit just one person and then you have to wait for it to detonate? And even then, it's not the most damaging ultimate in the world. It seems very interesting how they're trying to play this matchup, as you are gonna see this Jormungandr get aggressed on. He is gonna get stunned down.
He has an ultimate.
CC coming out. Might be able to try and kill him. Jing Chen with a great ultimate to try
Under
and
tower.
solo later. And here comes the Discordia. Good damn it. Oh, my bad. Caribou on the Bastet.
Great kill. I mean, that's just beautiful play. I mean, he doesn't have the beads on this Cabrakan. He went blink first. I mean, that's not as much of a surprise, you know. This Cabrakan's a great thing, and it's just blinking on someone, stunning them immediately. But no beads, and he gets thrown under a tower and gets killed there.
If Pingu plays that more passively until they get the beads online, then they'll be perfectly fine. Pretty much you're saving your ult to counter Justin at every point in time. It's really going to be the only way that you're going to be able to effectively be able to peel for any of your team, but also set up for kills for them at the same time. As Bingo is immediately going to try and aggress here, probably going to be overly aggressive. There goes one jump, he's on the tech one, it's going to go off, going to get slowed and CC'd immediately. Again, that's the danger of playing a character that's so aggressive, but you have to be able to be conservative.
Yeah, and Beats come out from Kyrana. I don't know if he has one up there. I mean, his one is a cleanse of CC, so probably will see that instead of his Beats come out. But with all that pressure, though, they're going for this Gold Fury, and this Corey actually is pathing from behind. There's no wards. They actually gotta be careful, because this is Corey could turn this fight around. Look for steal like we saw in game 1. This Corey's gonna, yeah, just instantly blow this Terra. Though, in a very awkward spot, he's gonna be traded out 1-for-1 there.
Yeah, it just really seems that the blue team just didn't learn from the last game, and they're doing it again. Seems like every time they try to grasp onto this Gold Fury, no one is effectively zoning. No one is actually keeping up that ward coverage to be able to see where the opposing team is. Jing Chen is going to be able to get a good ult off here. And again, Justin, who? Justin, yeah, I mean, back to the base for you.
Unless he goes hybrid, I think still you can just focus this Bracken with that Jing Channel and just constantly take a player out. Both Solar is very low, but it looks like they'll just back up for the time being, although knowing Solar, they might just continue to go right at it.
The kind of unfortunate part about watching a Guardian and a Guardian, a Guardian and a Warrior fighting each other is that it's just a lot of, I'm gonna poke you, you're gonna poke me, we're gonna look at each other, probably say hi, throw out a couple emails, whatever it is, and just gonna hope that our team is doing what they gotta do across the map, because I don't really foresee too much of a solo potential coming out of IU's characters. They can get them low, and they can wait for a gank to come over.
Like outside of that. Very low to
he is out of mana, so now he's all going to be able to rely just on Caribou to be able to secure this one. Autos all coming out, good slows and roots, but here comes
the Bracken with the walls. Justin 2 once more, 3-2-1. But he's caught position at this point, and he's going to eat a couple more ults and just die here once more. Yeah, that's the one thing that sucks as a solo, is that if you're doing good and your team's just sort of messing around and you just keep hearing, an ally has been slain. An ally has been slain. It's kind of demoralizing because you're just sitting there like, oh no, what can I do even if I have a lead? Actually, he goes into the Tyrannical Plate helm, I believe, with this tier 2 of the helmet. A new item. Do you think it's good here?
I guess you could call me a boomer. I like the old-fashioned way that we saw Jormungandr building into. I can see the general idea behind why he's going this route, but at the same time, is really too much that we're having to worry about here when you already know that this Kukulkan is constantly over-aggressing. You can pretty much darn near build whatever you want, knowing the fact that at least Caribou is finally starting to look at your lane and be way more aggressive as they are looking at this red buff here.
Terrell comes out.
Be able to come out, should be able to provide a lot of burst damage. Jing Chen ultimate.
Bracken's coming in once more. He wants revenge on that support. He gets the kill in. Just gets blown up by this Persephone. His Hey Caribou on this set just not careful enough. But speaking of builds up for solo once more, the Kukulkan's going into this tier 1 cloak, which is something we don't really see on most solos. We typically see him just go for, you know, magical protection next. It's kind of odd we see it come out actually. Maybe it's maybe it's an early game Magi's, like we said. I mean, they do have the Jing Channel, but I really don't know what's for besides that.
It'd be weird though, only because of the fact that it would be rushed. You don't have to worry necessarily about the CC coming out of a bastard.
We see a steal, and they steal away again! No! Rapid Pass, what are you doing? You get stolen away for the second game in a row. He does find the return kill on the Dios, but ay. You gotta secure those objectives.
I mean, Dios is actually just playing out of his mind at this point. He did this on the solo, and now he's doing on the Discord. You're playing late game hyper carry mid laners, and Dios 100% is playing this so well, considering how early in the game is. I mean, honestly, the steals that we are seeing continuously coming out from this man, the positioning that he's taking, it is so well. when you compare it to kind of how little we've been seeing really coming out of this Persephone, a lot of it has been kind of a second thought. Now, rushing the Rod Zahudi, kind of looking like a Zeus build here. I mean,
Yeah, it's
what's your take
interesting.
on
I
the
mean,
cooldown boots Rod?
I mean, it's a ton of power. When an enemy health bar is below 30% health, you do get that passive comes into play, which I believe is 25% extra damage on your abilities. That hits gods with that. I mean, I don't know about Persephone necessarily, but speaking of ults though, G-Chen throws a terror right into the combo, and she's actually gonna live with that Lotus Crown, with all those heals, and Upchain gets a kill off the ult with the damage from the Bracken. Bracken's still hunting Dios Lalo, and that's a huge amount of damage on that mid here. Poor Lalo, but great peel from his support allows him to get the turn kill, but a huge bone rush from this Persephone. He gets a double kill. Jormungandr finds an ult to punish. Persephone kind of just looked there like, oh, you guys. The Jormungandr with no ult though. Once you get rooted as a Jormungandr into an AC, you're just dead at that point. But that Blitz actually came in huge. I was going to mention that next. I think we don't see it come out first, but came in very handy there.
Knowing that you're going to be able to proc the ultimate, considering how clumps their team is perfect. You're going to be able to get the Lotus Crown effect, and it actually does have some damage on it, so your ultimate is absolutely going to be chunky. Probably another reason why he was able to secure that kill with his ultimate. But it's so funny. Call the Caster's Curse, 100%. This Persephone immediately beat my words. Like, immediately.
Yep.
The damage coming out of this Persephone was absolutely disgusting. But we also didn't really mention the fact that there are a lot of roots and a lot of CC that is going to really keep this Jormungandr down.
Yeah.
And I'm still not 100% how they're going to be able to play around that, just because the fact that we're already seeing the hybrid build coming out of Justin. Then we're seeing the Persephone with just her ultimate alone, knowing that if anybody is stacked on top of him, he's going to basically get the rest of his team stuck inside of that ultimate. Then the Terra, then the Chernavad. I mean, my goodness, you played solo. I mean, what do you do as the Jormungandr here?
I mean, you just gotta be careful. I mean, the biggest thing with the Jormungandr is using that ult efficiently and properly. You know, once you use that ult, you gotta realize, hey, I can't be too aggressive at this point. I gotta be at least a bit careful. But speaking of builds though for the Jormungandr, he's going to the Stone of Foul next, which, I mean, it's lots of power in this build, but I don't quite like it necessarily, especially when with its new passive, which revolves around your teammates and them building magical protections. Oh no, the Dios Lalo composition again. That leap will get him through, thankfully for him. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see how people play Yorm. You know, lots of new solos, but Gabrahan just blinks in, the walls on the mark. Poor Lalo.
Oh my goodness, my heart actually stopped and I felt that pain.
Yeah, I did too.
In there and just really curious to know where's my support, healed, need healing, just anything at this point in time.
Ooh, great wall stun.
And immediately turn around as the amount of damage is going to be brought out onto this Bastet. One shot and done. We are going to see the charms coming out. Great ultimate. Lots of ultimates that are being expended to try and kill this Chiron. Hopefully they actually try and distance or at least get this tier 1 tower so they can be able to try and get something more off this. Dash is coming out. He's going to be able to
Jing Shendo 3-man ult. But not enough damage. They're just gonna get out alive. But I mean, yes, a lot of the soul laners this year are actually new soul laners to the league. Lots of draft picks, and it's interesting to see how they all play Yorm. A lot of them favor this Jormungandr. And like I said, the relics on him are very interesting to go into too. Normally, you see the Aegis or the Thorns. You know, the Aegis is, I prefer the Aegis a lot more. Even though I love just sort of killing these backline carries with their own damage. It's just a lot safer of an option, especially when, you know, you're just completely vulnerable without that ult. But he goes into a shell, which is okay, but I mean, with a god like Chernobog, he's just gonna instantly take away those, the block stats, even when this item's upgraded. I don't really like it here.
Looking more at where we're seeing a lot of these builds transition into, already looking at the level of disparities as well. Just looking at the left and looking at the right. 15 to 13, 15 to 13, 15 to 13, 12 to 10, 14 to 13. I mean, the red team clearly are splitting gosh darn near everything at this point with how close everyone is in levels. But unfortunately, it just seems like the blue team is in a position where they have really allowed for themselves to carry this lead that they have. Terra ultimates are on point. This Persephone damage, just not enough people are really looking at her. And I mean, but don't even get me started on Justin. This man is just playing it right at every facet.
Yeah, 8-4 once more. Probably gonna get another game with double-digit kills. Great stun, but not much follow-up. Ancient is all alone and is just throwing a Terra. Really, nothing should come out of this. Both teams will back off, but that interesting cloak start we saw from the Colin looks like he went to the High of the Urchin, which I think is probably one of the better things to go if you do that type of start. Lots of health. You don't have too many prots up front with only at least 35. Watch out, this bitch does a lot of damage. Leap is off the mark though, and she'll just walk away from that with her ult. But yeah, I mean, I like that item. I prefer it much more on like a 5th or 6th slot, but still a good item. And Jormungandr, I'm lucky to be alive there, honestly. I think if Ratchet just stayed in that same position from earlier, they could have found that Jormungandr. But yeah, I mean, I like the item. But being its second pick is weird.
Well, looking at the composition overall and just kind of where they are when it comes to itemization, High of the Urchin is going to completely be able to negate Discordia ult, as it's just not really a lot of
but look at the zoning. They're on Fire Giant. They're taking it, and I mean, no one's there to tell us.
So far ahead.
Yeah, but speaking of a very smart play though from Gorrllia Museum, they're split pushing these towers on. Unfortunately, Jing Cheng can't really take a tower. Instead, they'll get the tier 2 and tier 1 in this long lane of the map. Which, I mean, if they do that, at least there's something in return for them.
Hey, I mean, shout out to all my ADCs out there in the world. ADCs, raise your hand. If you were ever behind in your lane and you knew you just couldn't fight your lane opponent, you split push. That's what you do. It's like their creed, it's their motto. I never play ADC, but I've seen it often enough that I know there has to be a little book that they all read that says, if thou art behind, thou shalt split push. And I respect it 100%. You might as well try and get as much gold as you can. It actually allows for him to finish the Aussie and go into what I hope is going to be an Executioner, if not at least a Kim's, because you do see a lot of health items coming out of the blue team.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of split push, I mean, that's Chernobog's main job. That's one thing you can do very easily. I mean, they're way far ahead for this, but typically we see teams, that are a bit more even. You see the Chernobog will, split push left lane while the teams are dancing around Fire Giant, and then when the fight gets hairy, he just rotates in. We see the same thing from junglers too, except they can only really get to that mid lane, no global ultimates for any jungle, I think, just semi-globals and like the Thor, the Ratasker, and the Thanatos.
My goodness, my heart actually dropped again as we saw such microscopic amounts of damage coming out of this Discordia onto this Cabragan. I mean, at this point, pen defense, that is 100% what this team needs. We're already seeing crit come out of the Chernobog. We're already seeing the coin coming out of Persephone. I mean, it just seems as though they are not in a position right now to be able to step out of Phoenix's. On the red team, try and get as many waves as you can, give up those last tier 2 towers that you've got sitting, and just play the Phoenix defense. That was one of the biggest things that we were unable to see in the last match, where, again, both teams didn't even get close to finishing out their entire builds because neither team just wanted to play it passively. Neither team was able to slow the game down. And when you have both teams who are trying to bullhorn this so much, I mean,
that's the tech proposition.
Be able to do it. I mean, look at Caribou. What is his position that he's taking? Where is his
Give me a bit of a laugh there too, but like Peanut Butter and Jelly, you see Terrell and Frenzy coming out. I mean, they're just gonna... I mean, someone's gonna get blown up immediately. If this Kyron isn't careful, his health bar will go from 100 to 0 within a second and a half. There's 70 ult.
That's what I want to see coming out of anybody else. Jing Chen ultimately is going to try to utilize here. We do actually see a Curse on getting popped. Should be able to try and dissuade a little bit what this Terra wants to do, but it is not going to stop the blue team from being able to continuously run through them. I do like the attempt out of the Cursed Ankh, though. I will give the red team that much.
Ooh, the apple. Thrown very late into that fight, but I mean, you saw the frontliners of Gorrllia was just instantly melted, and I mean, when the front line is getting instantly melted, it's not too inspiring to see what happens to your back lines. Persephone took a very bad pathing, and she's gonna likely fall here. Shell is perfect though. Snipes just off the mark, and Flyzo failed with that vulnerability and that old little ball on top of that as well. Bicep is still lurking around the speed bump like she wants to get a kill on someone, but I really don't think they can. But huge strike combo, and I think I'm gonna kill the Chernobog. Chernobog, yeah, with the Razor Claw. It's a kill there. Great play. Great pick too. I mean, that's an AEC. That's your main source of Phoenix damage. They're still aggressing on this. I mean, they can. This Colin's caught in spot because that Jing Chen route. Oh, he gets his transformation off, and actually Persephone comes out nowhere. He want to go back in on this. This Colin is just dying as Discordia, and Lalo falls once more. 10 kills for Justin on this Bracken. But Caribou finds a return kill as well as Pingu, and that's a 3 for 2. Still currently in favor of Team Gorrllia Museum.
At this point, any kills for the red team is going to just naturally be able to really allow for them to exemplify that they are a team that doesn't want to just give this up too early. They don't want to be able to be a team that's just getting ran through. We are seeing a decent amount of damage finally coming out of Dios, and again, he's getting that coin stack. He's got a little bit more penetration online, but they've got to be able to just take these small victories. You got a decent amount of damage off when it came to defending your Phoenix. You got a great strife off, but then you're pressing forward against a team that's going to dive you, kill you, and you're not going to be able to get such an easy return, as this Terra is actually going to fall to parry.
Lack of respect. And, you know, I think that was something F-Dot brought up last season. You know, looking at the builds, you know, some builds look beautiful just on that because of their colors and stuff. You know, you see the Persephone build, all those blues and those purples look very well together. But this Jormungandr build just, in every way, looks just disgusting.
It's niche. Some defense gets some crits, some defense against getting one shots, some cooldown. It's a little bit of everything. There isn't exactly one straight path that we're seeing here. It's just a lot of, I need a little bit of this, I need some of this, I need some of this. You know, we don't see any, we're now finally going to see a rogue come out of him, but at this point in the game, I'm not so opposed to it because he needs any sense of taking this that he can get. Honestly, I've never been a huge person to downplay getting like an Emperor's Crown, where you're able to stay under your Phoenixes, allow for your Phoenix to do a little bit more
picked
damage.
it up, actually.
I love it. Anything that just allows for them to slow it down. Anything that allows for them to have some sense of relevancy.
I mean, I like the Tyrannical play, but at the same time, I just really don't like the Stone of Fall. I mean, there's literally no way of its passive, like, just being worked with at all. I mean, there's no true magical protections from this team. It's just like one of the deep stats with the actual little bit from Stone of Binding. I mean, we saw a very interesting build come out from Mortimer. He looked at trying to get as much cooldown as he could to get 70% cooldown on Odin, which, I mean, it's overkill, but the passes from the items, though, they get were at least decent, you know? And we do see a pause vote come out, likely just a mistake. Unless someone did DC. I mean,
honestly, when it comes to cooldowns, again, if you're a person who isn't always super confident in hitting your abilities, I don't care if you got 80%, 90%, 1,000. At least we know that at some point you're gonna hit something. Again, look at these games. There are a lot of abilities that we're seeing being missed. I've seen more apples just roll across the screen than actually hit somebody. I've seen a lot more Jing Chen ults that probably could have grabbed a lot more people. I've seen some Kyron ults that actually haven't hit anybody. I don't know if he was out here hitting Casper, but if you got the cooldowns, at least your team knows at the end of the day that in 5-6 seconds, you got it again. You just gotta keep okay. Sometimes it just takes one.
I mean, some items' passives are just very amazing. A lot of the cooldown items actually for defense have great passives. Phoenix easily goes down here, and Jormungandr does as well. Another kill for Control on this Chernobog. Persephone hits the Bastet on the mark. Just who finds another kill on the Dios Lalo. Dios Lalo not having a fun time against this Bracken. Bracken's diving into the fountain. Did he get the kill? That's a double kill for this Chernobog. And I think it's just likely gonna be game here. Frenzy is popped as well. Chernobog is taking Titan, but that might actually find the kill there. But unfortunately will not, and time will fall. Very quick 2-0 for Wrath of Bats. I mean, the first game was 23 minutes, second game was 25. Only a 2-minute differential, and we down this set within just slightly under 50 minutes.
Yeah, looking at both teams, I can't say that there was like a definitive stomp coming from either team. It just seems as though the blue team was able to work with the lead
Yeah.
that they had so much better. We just didn't see an impactful dual lane coming out of the red team. Both games, we're seeing our dual lane. What are we? So 0-4 and 1-5, so combined 1-9. So I think we're probably averaging from both games about like a 3 and goodness 15 20, not even close to being at least like a 1-to-1 ratio or even a 1-to-2. So if we can really run down a little bit more of kind of how their dual lane needs to be able to play off of one each other a little bit more, or even just starting to see our mid jungle and support combinations actually synergize a lot better. It just seems as though we're letting the Kamazots, we're letting the Kabrakan do whatever they want. It seems as though that was just something that it was like, oh, wait a second, they've got this one person who's running out our entire team, and we probably should have focused them first, but oh well. Like, we can't have so many of those oh well moments. There has to be a definitive, this is the person who is carrying the game. This is what we need to shut down. The Persephone, you didn't ban it. Hey, I'm not even going to say it's broken. I'm not going to say it's OP. You knew what you were getting yourself into by letting them pick Persephone. You knew it. You did. But the least you could do was try and counteract how much that character was going to do in mid lane by suppressing it somewhere else.
Indeed. I mean, it's a 14-week season, 14 games for every team, and I think we'll see a lot of these, sort of kinks and flaws be sort of just grinded out as we go on with the season. It's still early in the season, only week 3. Every team is basically still in the running for a deep playoffs run, or at least a playoffs run as well. But yeah, I mean, with these divisions though, Rats with Bats, I believe that does place them very high up in the division. I believe 2nd or 3rd place with this win at 2-1 in the water division. I believe they're tied with the Pappies. I don't know exactly how the win-loss is 100%, but I mean, Rats with Bats is certainly a strong team. I mean, they just play around their carries, just running down these people and just winning games for them single-handedly.
I think
I think
that's
so.
all the games. GG's vital teams.
Yeah, GG's.